those books are meant to waken us, to wake up our Krishna consciousness. After it's awake, then there are many books. We used to wonder why we're passing out 5th canto Śrīmad Bhāgavatam in the airports. Still we might wonder. That's very difficult, you see. Anyway, those things were going on. But Bhagavad Gita, that is spoken to a person, great personality, Arjuna, but he's posing himself in ignorance. He's posing himself in the thraldoms of lamentation and bewilderment, you see. He's been put in that position. Then what Krishna speaks to him, it arouses his eternal consciousness. He rises. He arises to the duty of his eternal self. From the slumber of ignorance, he rises to his eternal duty, to realize something of his eternal nature. So what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, that is especially to wake up the sleeping souls. After they're awake, there are many more progressive literatures. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is meant for paraṁahamsas. But it is also so structured that anyone who comes in contact with it from any angle will begin the process of purification and devotional service. But actually it cannot be appreciated except by those who are the paraṁahamsas. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is a notch above the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Sometime in the near future, we want to present an article on Krishna talk called Going Beyond Vṛndāvana. There has been talk about going beyond Vaikuntha. There's a book actually called Going Beyond Vaikuntha. There have been articles going beyond Vaikuntha. Then going beyond Vṛndāvana. What is that? How to go beyond Vṛndāvana. And it will begin with this recollection and an explanation that Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura said, Vṛndāvana is for the shallow thinkers, those who have small theistic intellect. And then he prescribes Kurukshetra as an ultimate place of service, and so forth. And ultimately that article would come to Chaitanya-lila. Chaitanya-lila is Audarya-lila. And Krishna-lila is called Madhurya-lila. Madhurya is the sweetest. But Audarya means when the sweetest overflows itself. It overflows. And when magnanimity is there, then that sweetness is distributed. The circle of Madhurya Rasa in Krishna Lila is actually very limited in the sense that only the most qualified have any access to that whatsoever. And the more the Lord's pastimes are exalted in terms of intimacy, the fewer and fewer people are found there. Fewer and fewer, fewer and fewer, not more and more, fewer and fewer. The lower Rasa Lila begins in Vṛndāvana. There are millions. When the Rasa Lila is performed at Radhakund, there are a couple dozen. This means 5, 10. There are a couple of dozen. In Vṛndāvana, millions. At Govardhan, less. At Radhakund, less. The higher the Lila, the fewer the qualified personalities. For very many reasons, the fewer. But Chaitanya Lila is a little bit different in that it does not have the same type of restrictions. And it wants to rush out to those who have no taste for it at all, who have no taste for Krishna, and it wants to embrace them and bring them to Krishna. So by those who are highly advanced and who understand the philosophy of love and all these things, then they give their rating that Chaitanya Lila is the highest of all. It contains Krishna Lila and something more. So that would be then, going beyond Vṛndāvana would be coming to Navadvip, beyond Vṛndāvana. Many times people think of Navadvip, Chaitanya Lila, and everything like that as being something lower that gets you to Krishna Lila. But actually, it's something more. It takes you to Krishna Lila, and it takes you somewhere beyond also. So, everything not for everyone. But it begins with, you have to believe it. And you have to want it. To the degree that you believe it, to the degree that you want it, then all of these things in Krishna consciousness are effective in a wonderful way. To the degree. Little believe it, little want it, little degree you appreciate, oh, nice tasting halwa, you see. But generally you don't rave over the shock, you see. The spinach. You only rave over the sweets. So the sweet taste to your tongue enters first. It's some appreciation. But Mahaprabhu, he used to rave over the shock, the spinach. And he would say, this is so sweet. This shock is so sweet because it is mixed with the saliva of Krishna's lotus lips. It is so sweet. And anyone who tastes this prasad will awaken their love of God. Maybe if we were to eat that same shock, a little bitter. We may think it a little bitter, a little bland. Because we don't have the perception to taste that higher sweetness that is there. I've told this mentioned before. I gave to my sister's son once. My sister's son, yes, my sister's son. Bṛhad-Bhāgavatāmṛtam to read on the airplane while we were flying to India. And to him, and in the end, to him, I said, well, what did you think? He said, sounded like fairy tales. And I said, yeah, that's what I would expect you to think it was. Simply fairy tales, just stories. And you could mix them up with Hans, Gretel, and so many other, and he wouldn't be able to discriminate. He said, I like Bhagavad Gita. That sounds really good to me. I said, yes, that should sound good to you. But Bṛhad-Bhāgavatāmṛtam is the Bṛhad-Bhāgavatāmṛtam. It is the great nectar of the essence of the great nectar of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. A very exalted book, certainly more than just a accumulation of wonderful stories with wonderful characters taking place in wonderful places. But even at this stage, if you read it, it's hard to ascertain. Wow, it's just like Gopakumar is just going to a lot of very far out places, meeting a lot of extraordinary people where trees are very big and rivers are made of nectar, and it's just a strange place. What is actually happening there is very hard to perceive. We're not so elevated to perceive that, but if we're going progressively, it will have some attraction for us. It will have some attraction. It will have some attraction. But if we are not qualified for that book, it may have the opposite effect. It may have a bewildering effect. Currently there is a book that's being read by many devotees, and there's a whole buzzing controversy about it. It's been going on for about, as I remember now, about 4 or 5 years. It kind of dies out and then it comes back up. Recently, Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, who was here last summer, was it last summer? Yeah. He wrote and asked something about this book. It is called Kṛṣṇa Saṁhitā by Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura. Where Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, all the stories in the Puranas, they are all make-believe. There are no such places. He just like brooms everything into the realm of mythology. Of course, the British are there. Bravo, bravo. What more say ye? What more say ye? Yes, yes, listen to me closely, he says. And he preaches through them. He adjusts the mentality of the scholar, the rationalist and everything. He goes to their plane and says, of course, of course, of course. And they said, but do you know what the meaning of this is? And takes them through their mythological point of view to a truthful meaning. Right? So then devotees, many people are saying, oh, just see, these stories aren't true. And look here, Prabhupada said they are true to the %, every syllable of the word of Bhagavatam is true, except one story. What is it? King Prachini Bharija. Yeah. The city of 9 gates, King Prachini Bharija. He says that is allegorical. Everything else is true. You see. So then this whole thing just going on. Some group trying to relativize Prabhupada. So many things going on. And really the fact is, those people who are reading that book, they're not qualified. Although it's written, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura has written it for many unqualified ears. in one sense, they don't even have the qualification of those years. They become bewildered by reading that book. Who prescribed it to them? Maybe nobody. Self-discovery can be the path of self-destruction. Better stay on the path of grace. It's coming down in basketfuls. We can feast on grace. We go out on the path of self-discovery, and we may discover the devil's brew. We may become bewildered. And that is not just a precaution which we come to out of seeing, but rather it is a Shastra guidance also. In the Shastra that we have been given, it is said one should not read many books. It is there in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One should not read many books and try to understand many branches of philosophy. The result will be bewilderment. So everybody not qualified for everything. Everyone is qualified for the holy name, however. The holy name has no such restriction. Literature, so many steps. Steps to the pearly gates. So many, many steps. Not everything for everyone. The holy name, however, for everyone. The holy name will go to the most unfit and unqualified. It even leaves the human society and goes down to the plants and animals, birds, beasts, insects, and all varieties of life who contact the vibration of the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. They are benefited. And immensely so. Not just so-so. Immensely so. The holy name of Kṛṣṇa, none different than Kṛṣṇa himself. Nama Cintāmaṇi Kṛṣṇas
Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha.
Chaitanya Rasa. It is no different than the form of Kṛṣṇa, the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. So, now back to the reading. Śrīla Purī Mahārāja says, Lord Chaitanya appointed his devotee Haridas Thakur to be the teacher of this doctrine. According to authoritative sources, we know that Haridas was born in a Muslim family in the village of Burhan near Bongaon. Even so, while he was still young, the spiritual culture of his previous lives awakened the desire to worship Lord Kṛṣṇa in him. He thus left home and built a cottage in the woods near Benapole and took complete shelter of the holy name and meditation on the Supreme Lord. So in the beginning, Haridas Thakur had no guru. He was born in a Muslim family. Then, as is mentioned, what word he used? The culture, the spiritual culture of the previous life, what he had cultivated in a previous life, then that awakened in him in his present life as a Mohammedan, and this caused him to leave home, and he went to some place there and set up a cottage, and taking complete shelter of the holy name of Kṛṣṇa, he began going on with the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. Then, if I'm not mistaken, at a time, then he came under the shelter of Mahaprabhu Puri, Advaitacharya, Haridas Thakur, Jagannath Mishra, all these many stalwarts. And in many cases, it is not said. It is not said, and there is no reference that on this day he met Mahaprabhu Puri. On this day this one met, and this one that one met. There are no such reference. Then how is it understood? How is it understood who is spiritual master? Because there is a particular quality found in Haridas Thakur. There is a particular quality. Although he took to the holy name before meeting his guru, that is open to everyone. You all did. We all did. And some of us still don't have a shelter of guru, still we may chant Hare Krishna. So we all took to the holy name before we met our guru. That's a universal principle, practically. In some cases, not. For example, Mahaprabhu, he began chanting of the holy name actually only after meeting his guru. But in most cases, it's the other way around. We begin chanting the holy name takes us to the shelter of our guru, and then so forth from there. So Haridas Thakur was like that. Of course, he was taking to the holy name in big quantity, even at that time. But how do we know he's a disciple of Mahaprabhu? How do we know Advaitacharya and so many others? because it is not always mentioned. There's no reference. But we know by the quality of a particular individual. And again, not the neophytes, not even the Madhyamatacharyas, but the great acharyas, they have ascertained by the quality of an individual's devotion what must be their spiritual connection, because without that higher spiritual connection, such quality of devotion is not possible. They must have that connection. So it is like taken in reverse. They see the quality, and with this, we must know they have a connection. And sometimes it is found out, and no, sometimes it isn't. Who is the guru of, well, I forget this, what's it? It becomes, Jagannath Das. It's either Jagannath Das Babaji or, I forget, it's all in the Paraṁahamsas book. Bamsidas, not Bamsidas? Bamsidas Babaji. Yeah, Bamsidas is a shining example. Nobody knows who the guru of Bamsidas Babaji is. Absolutely nobody. Nobody knows who his guru was. They know so many things about him in Bengal at the time. He outlived Jagannath. He outlived Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, Gorkishore Das Babaji. I think even Saraswati Thakur. I think he didn't disappear until 1947. I may be wrong about that, but if you don't know this name, you read the Paraṁahamsas book thoroughly, you'll see this name, Bamsidas Babaji. Nobody knows who his spiritual master is. But everybody in that time, everybody in Bengal, accepted him as a Siddha Mahatma. That means a perfected human being. And everyone knows, without the connection of Guru, it's not possible to come to that platform. So they know he has a bona fide connection. They know he received his mantras from a bona fide connection, but nobody knows who it is. One example there of the underground. The river is flowing, it goes underground, we don't know where it went, but when it pops up somewhere else, well, we must know it went somewhere, or it couldn't come up again. So it's there, but we don't know where it is. Our parampara has a few of those things. We don't just judge by seeing one hand linked to the other. We judge by a result. We see a result. Some people may be in the link, but it's like the phone lines around here. Then comes the expert electrician, and he connects them. Then there's life. So the Ritvik is like a dead phone line. There's a box, there's a line, it's color-coded, there's even a pole, a satellite dish, whatever, it's all there, but there's no connection. It has all the frill, but it doesn't have the essence. And that is what's most telling in the long run. In the short run, we can be deceived by so many things. Counterfeit money, false people, claiming so many things, but in the long run, when we take a thing to its final test, then we know truth from illusion. But in the short estimation of a thing, we're often bewildered, confused, deluded. So, what was back the point? So, they know, and a very classic example of they know by the quality is when Mahaprabhu met one Brahmin in Mathura at the Janmasthana of Sri Kṛṣṇa. Mahaprabhu was in ecstatic mood of dancing and chanting of the holy name, and everybody else was just in shock. More or less, this is the time before sahajas. Nowadays, no one would be in shock. So many people would begin rolling on the ground and just having a grand time of it. But this was in a time before sahajas. You see, like in South India, there are no sahajas. There are gyanis, starch collar gyanis everywhere, but there are no sahajas. And many times when we do Sankirtan somewhere, people they just look, they're stunned. They don't know what this is, because nobody starts dancing like this in front of Lord Vishnu. Everybody's standing like this, going like this, pulling their ears, I'm a fool, doing all these things. Nobody's dancing like this. Yeah. And they come out to a certain place and very formally give their dandavats. Nobody's dancing and shouting and singing. And they see this and they're shocked. Like the day we went to Melkoti, to the Sanskrit Academy about 5 years ago. The whole place just froze. They were holding their books and they were just looking, what is this? Although they had some experience of it. They say, what is this? And if they're found to do this at all, it is only very, very regulated. There's no spontaneity, you see. But the Harināma of Mahaprabhu's movement, although it seems to have so much regulation to it, it is actually, we trace it back, it's from spontaneity that this kirtan exists. So with some regulation, we're trying to groom ourselves in a position where we can finally catch that spontaneous attraction to the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. So they are unfamiliar. They are unfamiliar with that. But when Mahaprabhu saw one Brahmin dancing along with him, then he immediately understood. This Brahmin must have some connection with Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura. And that's the key in Caitanya Charitamrita that we are given there. That we will ascertain the line, not by just knowing a person's connection, but by witnessing their position, or again, Śrīla Prabhupada would say, hearing them. What did they say? Someone claims to be a disciple of someone. Well, the best way to know for sure is not the photo that shows them getting initiated, because that can be created in Photoshop. The best way to know for sure is to hear them. And you have to hear them very, very, very sensitively. Because there are people who are connected, but they are almost not connected. They have been initiated, and they have a vast knowledge, but they just couldn't put it together. You see, so they are connected, but they have very little meager realization. Some people are living in the past. They heard Prabhupada say one or two things. They didn't listen to him for the whole thing, study everything he said, and practice everything he said, and get to the end of what the Kṛṣṇa consciousness is, actually. And therefore they will argue that Prabhupada was not for Bṛhad-Bhāgavatāmṛtam, he was only for book distribution, or so many things, from higher level to lower level. They will argue. Now those are the disciples who paid meager attention to their guru, although they're connected. But if one is not connected at all, and you are a disciple, bona fide, and you are a practicing real disciple, then you'll understand very easily, just by hearing, when someone is not actually in the line. You can understand by hearing, you can understand by observing their activities. But of course, sometimes people can put on a good show, and we're not there to like check everybody. But in the last 25 years, I've discovered numerous so-called disciples of Prabhupada who had planned it all out in history, when they were initiated and what their name was, and in the end, they weren't there at all. They were never initiated. He never gave them that name. They just created the whole thing. So, so Haridas Thakur, like I said, he began first because of the sukriti of his previous life. Then he came in connection with Bhaktivinoda Puri. All right, now it says, Śrīla Purī Mahārāja says, Haridas was obliged to leave Binapole when disturbed by people who could not understand his spiritual vocation. These wicked people tried to disrupt his spiritual practice and destroy his reputation by sending a prostitute to tempt him. But this woman was converted by Haridas when she heard the holy name from his saintly mouth. The saint gave her a cottage where she took to a life of spiritual dedication, and then Haridas set off towards the Ganges. With the holy name on his lips, Haridas crossed the Ganges and came to Saptagram, where he was given residence in the hall of Yadunandana-acharya. Now, this may be the same Yadunandana-acharya who was the Diksha Guru of Raghunath Das Goswami. Haridas's host took him to regular religious meetings held in the house of two wealthy brothers, Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar. Govardhan's young son, Raghunath Das, often came to see Haridas, He became a great devotee as a result of his blessings. So thus far, no mention who is his guru. Simply he's born as a Muslim, his previous life's awakening, he goes off to the holy name. Then he's with Nanda-acharya, Raghunath Das gets his association, he becomes attracted to Kṛṣṇa. So it is understood that somewhere in that journey, he must have made the connection. Otherwise, that effect would not be there. Simply by seeing him, simply by hearing him chant, others would not become devotees, because one cannot cross the plane of nāmābhāsa without the bona fide connection with the Guru. Nāmābhāsa means the shadow of the name. It does not give love of God. It may free one from sin and destroy previous, so many things like that. There's a long list of nāmābhāsa. You would almost think nāmābhāsa was a perfection. It can even give liberation in different ways. But it cannot give love of Kṛṣṇa. At one meeting, Haridas was drawn into a protracted debate on the nature of the holy name with a so-called Brahmin who worked for the Jamandar's brother named Gopal Chakravarti. Hiranya and Govardhan fired Gopal when he became offensive to Haridas in the course of this debate. But the unfortunate man had to suffer grave consequences when he was consequently afflicted with leprosy. That's the incident I was talking about the other day. His nose fell off. What Haridas Thakur was speaking about the glories of the holy name. And he was saying that the holy name is so powerful, so potent, so glorious, that if one even accidentally chants the holy name in his sleep, makes fun of the holy name, or says the holy name broken into syllables with some other syllables in the meaning, like ra-ta-ma, ratama. What is ratama? I don't know. Rotten tomato, ratama. Ratama. Ra-ta-ma. So take out the T and it's ra-ma, Rama. So if one says ratama, the holy name is present in that word that he meant, and Haridas Thakur said, even by that, the potency of the holy name, one will get liberation. And this was irritated one Brahmin who was there, probably Smarta Brahmin was there, very irritated. And he ridiculed Haridas. He was trying to belittle him. And then in the end he said, well, if you don't get liberation through this nāmābhāsa, then your own nose should fall off. And he said like that. And in the morning he woke up, his nose was on his pillow. What he told to that great devotee just bounced back on his own nose. There's a saying, point the finger and 3 point back. That's just the material understanding. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, this is the great secret of the Vaishnavas, that if we criticize those who are pure and holy and above any such critique, then the very thing we criticize of them will become our own. It becomes ours, whatever it is. And I have seen this in my own life. I used to criticize fat people, and I found that I was becoming fat. But I've seen other more drastic examples of that. I saw once how people criticized Srila Sridhar Maharaj over the fall of the jiva issue, and in their ridicule called him a Mayavadi. And I've seen those same people adopt that doctrine as the very basis and a foundation of their sampradaya, and even take it to the extent to try to say that Prabhupada was different than all other acharyas, even his own guru, because he alone knew this truth, that we all fall from Goloka Vṛndāvana, and try to use that as an evidence to create a new sampradaya. And Prabhupada is a new sampradaya head based on that. They've adopted that misunderstanding as their state doctrine. And how did this come to be? Because they made these offenses against someone pure and saintly, and then this just came back upon them. And not just that, other similar things. Right? So if we find fault where there is no fault, then that fault that we found has to go somewhere and have a home. and it just comes right back. Just like in those Bhagavatam stories when astra is thrown to kill the offenseless, but the astra just turns around and comes right back on the person who threw it and destroys them. So in a simple way, if you point one finger, 3 point back. So better don't point the finger. Then, that gentleman's nose fell off. When Haridas learned of Gopal Chakravarti's suffering, he left Saptagram with a great deal of sadness in his heart. He went to live in a cave of Pulia, a village near the home of Advaitacharya in Shantipur. Under the Acharya's guidance, Haridas engaged in constant worship of the Lord. Though he did so in seclusion, the nature of pure devotion is such that as much as a devotee avoids the limelight, his glories eventually become known and attract sincere seekers of spiritual life. So, you would wonder, years ago, I thought, well, how to hatch a plan to become famous in India. It's very easy. And by now, I would have been effective. All I would have had to do was whoop up just one heck of a story. How I remember my past 3 lives, and then a little editing, a little help from my friends, create some story. Just some outrageous story of visions, trance, and powers. And no matter how many times I'm found out to be a fool, just stick to it. And within 7 years, they'll be breaking down the gate to get in. But I haven't done that. Instead, every time I give a talk in India, I kick Sai Baba right on the face. And I kick the government on the face. And all the other cheating politicians, cheating godmen, and all types of other things. All kinds of cheating business going on in India. Immorality and cheating, and I just step on it. So then, there are only a few people there. So if we want to become popular, we can hatch a scheme, stick with that. We'll become very, very popular. They used to say, if you want to have fun at parties, don't talk about 2 things. Politics and religion. Talk about sports, talk about girls, talk about boys, talk about somebody. Don't talk about politics and don't talk about religion. And of the 2, religion is the worst one to talk about. That spoils everything. If you talk about the fact that you'll have to die, people go, why are you such a negativist? At least live while you're alive. While you're living, you're talking about dying. But we'll say, no, you're the negativist because you're just accepting it. That it's just the end. Well, we don't live like that. We live with the complaint. This is unnatural. There must be something beyond. There must be something more. And we want to prepare for that. So, but to be popular, to be successful, that is actually very easy. But to be genuine, that's a little more difficult. So Haridas Thakur, being the emblem of the most genuine type of devotee, would always flee from any circumstances where he found popularity coming towards himself. You see, Madhavendra Puri was similar, showed this. Many great devotees have shown this. They shun this popularity. Srila Sridhar Maharaj called it backwards pushing. Well, once we asked, it's very rare to find a picture of Srila Sridhar Maharaj with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta because he was there a lot and the cameras were there, flashing away in the old style, the big camera, the big black robe, the big flash. He was there, but he's not in a lot of the pictures. And Govinda Maharaj said, yes, Guru Maharaj, when the camera would come out, Guru Maharaj would disappear. He wouldn't go into the limelight. And you can see a lot of people. It's not a bad thing, but you can see a lot. They're just right in there. Everybody just getting right in there with Saraswati Thakur. That's not a bad thing. They're with their guru, and that's nice. But his nature was just be on the side, not be in the limelight, be to the back. It was called backwards pushing. But in the end, not in the end, but that natural humility, that draws another class of people. That drew so many people towards him throughout his life for his sincere guidance and opinions. And Śrīla Purī Mahārāja was also very similar in that his whole life was spent helping others, assisting, serving his guru, not that he's helping his guru, but serving his guru. And then after the disappearance of his Guru Maharaj, he served in the mission of Bhakti Daitya Madha Maharaj, Bhakti Daitya Madha Maharaj. And he served there, even to the time Madha Maharaj disappeared from the world, and Bhakti Ballabhtirtha Maharaj became the appointed successor of Madha Maharaj. And Śrīla Purī Mahārāja, I remember when that was, long back, something like 1979, 78 or 79. And I remember going to a program in Chandigarh, and Ballabhtirtha Maharaj was there. He was the Acharya of Madha Maharaj's mission. And Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj was there. And I can't remember distinctly as I remember Babaji Maharaj, but I believe Śrīla Purī Mahārāja was also there. But they were in support of him. He's younger by then by 50 years in age even. And junior to them in their spiritual status of bhajan and so many things. But they gave support to him. And then in the last, towards the last 8 to 10 years of Śrīla Purī Mahārāja's life, somewhere in that area, he decided to make a mission and make an ashram and a temple of his own. But he was serving the order of his guru, assisting his godbrothers, and even as an affectionate uncle looking after his nephews, and with a small, you can say, handful of disciples. It isn't that he set out on the task to have a mission, become a guru, make many disciples. No, this is not necessary for spiritual success. In fact, it may just have the opposite effect. Having that type of aspiration may have the opposite effect, you see. So he's an example of that, not going in the limelight, serving others, and in the end, he's in the center. Limelight, of course, you don't calculate to be in the limelight. Okay, I'll come back, I'll sit down in the corner, then everyone will see me, and then they'll bring me to the front. Some people hear, oh, that's the formula of success, so let me adopt that. Or they think, well, then why is anybody becoming guru? Oh, we are not imitationists, we are simply serving our guru. That's why we are becoming guru. If we are becoming guru, either you are a guru at home, or you're guru on the field. If you're a parent, you're a type of guru. If you're a husband or a wife, you're a type of guru. If you have any kind of dependence, you're a type of guru. Guru means guide, guru means teacher. So, but we don't do these things out of our own. Some of you young people are still struggling with what you want to do with your life. Give it up and listen to the authority. Right down to the point, marry who the authority tells you to marry. And you'll go the distance a lot longer than if you do everything on your heart, because your heart's just like a bowl of jelly. It's just moving here and all over them. It just gets swayed away. Whatever that starry-eyed thing that happens is, it goes away and it's just a cold stare in the end. This one couple said something to some Western, I forget how I came to know this, they said, in the West you fall in love and everything deteriorates from there. And in most cases, like 6, 7 out of 10, that's what happens. Divorce. 6, 7 out of 10 marriages, divorce in this country. My sister's been married 5 times. And that's not like exceptional anymore. 3 is just average. 2 is everybody. I mean, everybody's got it 2 times. Very rare. Only older school. Anyway, then they said, but in India, our marriages are chosen and we learn to love. We learn to appreciate that person. And until these modern times, there's no question of divorce. There's no question of divorce. That is not a good thing. Switching, changing, and it's a very selfish thing also. And mostly it affects the children, actually. Not that it's so bad with the adults, it has its own plane, it's not good. It affects the children. So there's duty. There's duty. Duty is higher than just our feeling, our sentiment. There's a call to duty. If we follow duty, if we follow authority, then that mental plane of indecision, so many planes are crossed by doing duty. And you know how powerful duty is? Duty sends thousands of people to the battlefield. Out of duty, they're laying down their life. We're living a nice, comfortable thing. Well, in the end of this little Afghan war, you're going to get the tally on the American dead. It ain't a dozen. It's going to be hundreds, if not thousands before it's over. It's just getting into the nitty-gritty. They're just getting on the ground now. It's already not. There will be casualties. So why are they there? What's a flag? A flag is a symbol of duty, of patriotism. People are there ready to die. It's a duty. And we saw this film recently, documentary about World War II. India lost 1.5 million soldiers in a 2-year period. Of course, the British used them more like cannon fodder than anything because of the whole British, they just didn't respect them as a race. So they were under-equipped, they were put in difficult situations. But they had a duty to the crown. And, in one sense we might say, well, that's stupid, that's foolish, you see. But when you abandon duty, then what's left? Then every society just degenerates. It's so strong that if you choose to follow your duty, and you join the military, and you're out there today, and all of a sudden you decide, you've had enough, they can shoot you on the spot. Because that disease cannot be allowed to spread to the next guy in the army. We've had enough. And then we lose. So you cannot neglect the order. You see. It's just like when Jayananda came home after being in the military for a while, he was cleaning his own house. I would have loved to have been there to see that. So it's, he got another experience. It's not like you want to clean your room or you don't want to clean your room. You clean your room. And it's good. And probably you'll see that for the rest of his life. Not that he'll just be like that, but, that shell shock is there. Sir. It's not just, they create in people. They help actually people to grow up at a point. But I'm just telling, duty is there. Duty. Duty is there in family. Duty is there in military. Duty is there always. And duty means, where's the authority that gave you the duty? Authority should be highly respected. Of course, it doesn't mean you can't choose who you'll marry or where you'll go to school. But if you do things that are completely against your elders, completely against authority, then ultimately there's not a happy result in that. It's not a happy result. There are such things as blessings. The blessings of the senior devotees, the blessings of your parents, the blessings even and good wishes of your friends. You get sick sometimes because people are thinking bad things about you. It actually creates bad vibes, as we say. But it's true. Like they say, every time you hiccup, somebody's thinking of you. But I also say at the same time, yeah, it so happens I'm always eating a chili at that time. So I happen to eat chilies every time someone's thinking bad, or it's thinking bad about you. But actually there are such things. The goodwill, and ultimately if we draw the goodwill of the highest authorities, spiritual authorities, our guardians, those guardian angels, if you will, if we draw their good wishes, then that will be the most beneficial thing for us in life that we could possibly seek. And if we were to draw their ill will, that would be the biggest catastrophe. But that also comes down right down to your circle of friends and family and so forth. Anyway, that's just one side point there. Haridas, when his brilliant reputation began to spread, many local Muslims were made jealous and approached the governor to punish him for having converted to Hinduism. So he became very popular, and the Muslims then struck against him. But it has been said, but it's the Brahmins that alerted the Muslims. The arrogant Brahmins, they alerted the Muslims that this is happening, you see. And actually, the Muslims were just drawn in to oppose Mahaprabhu's devotees in his Sankirtan movement. Even the Qazi, he didn't have a problem with the Sankirtan at Srivas-angan. But these envious Brahmins, they went and complained to the Qazi. What's this strange new religion? They're not following the traditional. We're for shanti, peace, quiet, meditation. They're beating the drum and shouting at all hours of the night. And the Brahmins actually irritated the Qazi, and then told so many false things. Then the Qazi was drawn in. So similarly, the Muslims went to Haridas and arrested him ultimately. The Muslims were made, the local Muslims were made jealous. You see, it is said here, made jealous, and approached the governor to punish Haridas for having converted to Hinduism. Though Haridas was tortured, his heart was so full of compassion that he never condemned his attackers, but only wished the best for them. Once freed, he returned to his cave in Pulia. So that is a very dramatic story. And if you have not read it from Chaitanya Bhagavat or heard it narrated as it is in Chaitanya Bhagavat, then you haven't begun to understand how horrific a day that was when Haridas Thakur was arrested. Chaitanya Charitamrita just tells the smallest version of it. Chaitanya Bhagavat is very, very elaborate. It's quite a story. If you publish that today in India, you could recreate Hindu-Muslim riots. It was so horrific an event that went on, and then what happened to the offenders, and you could practically start a civil war with that story. But despite Haridas being attacked by his so-called enemies, he had no enmity towards them. He felt no grief, no hatred towards them. And that's very difficult to free ourselves from hatred. You see, when something goes wrong, we find out it's just how much hatred is there. You see, once a thief was arrested in Hyderabad. The devotees came running to me and they caught the thief. We caught a thief, Maharaj. Come, beat him. And I'm like, thief? We caught the shoe thief. Come, Maharaj, beat him. Previously, there had been another sannyasi there, and he used to really wail on those shoe thieves. So he was gone. I was the new resident sannyasi, so it was kind of like the thing to do. So they went to get me to pound on the shoe thief. So they brought me down, and there's 15 brahmacharis standing around, and there's this guy in the middle of the floor, and he's just shaking, and here comes the Maharaj, and he's going to get a royal beating. And I'm just looking at this guy. What did he do? He stole the shoes. And beat him. And I was like, beat him. I thought, well. Then I saw it was a basement level thing, and there was this water used to flood under the stair. It was poor construction. It was very low. You'd have to crawl under there to mop this water up. And it would become smelly, stagnant. So I said, make him clean that water. Make him clean that water. So instead of beating, I made him do some devotional service. And then after he cleaned up that water, I said, bring all the leftover prasadam. And we sat the man down, and he must have been really confused by that. And sat him down, and it wasn't bad prasadam, it was just the leftover prasadam. And I made him eat prasadam until he was like, couldn't swallow another bite. And I said, now get out of here. We walked into the door. But just as he went out the door, I gave him a kick in the seat of the pants. I mean, you know, he probably went to his friends and said, you want to steal shoes? I'll tell you where to go. Just pick him up and go, here I am. You know, feed you. So then, Haridas Thakur, we'll stop here. Haridas Thakur, as he earned and he was given the title Nama-acarya. Not that he just chanted the holy name 120 rounds a day. That is said to be something of the quantity of his chanting. And he said he chanted 64 rounds normally as we chant japa with a little sound. And he did nirjan bhajan. He chanted another 60 or 64 rounds without uttering a sound. Japa should be chanted with some sound, but not exactly the sound in kirtan. Not that it is so silent that there's no sound. Japa is a little sound. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, it is said that he used to chant a significant portion of his japa as if shouting to someone at a distance. That means a distance of 30 or 40 yards, like you're trying to catch somebody at the driveway before they live. And at 3 in the morning he would walk in his garden and he would chant loudly as if calling to Kṛṣṇa, as calling to someone loud. And then at a time he would become quiet and sit down on a bench in the garden and chant more softly. So japa can also be chanted a little loud. I remember when, what's his name? Udayananda, Uncle Udayananda, came to Divinity Gardens. He was very fired up, and one morning he came over to my room after Artik and all, and he knocked on the door and he came in and he said, Maharaj, can I chant japa with you? And I said, no, this is not a kirtan. I don't want to sit here listening to your japa. I'm trying to chant my japa. So sometimes japa is better chanted when we can hear our japa and not the next person's japa. It's not exactly a kirtan, but as we have a ashram and a movement, especially in the old days in big temples, everybody chanted their japa in the same room. And it would become mad. People getting in corners and rattling their beads and chanting. And somebody chanting like this to hear themselves and everything. So, but the point is, chant the holy name. That must be there. So he was Nama-acarya, but not just by the quantity, but by the quality of his chanting of the holy name and the quality of his person, which was visible always. How he dealt with everything. And Acharya means the highest example. So Mahaprabhu gave this example. He told this example. This is the example to be followed. Haridas Thakur. If we want success in the chanting of the holy name, he is to be idolized. He is to be, what is the word, like exemplified? I mean, we're to follow his example. We are to learn from him. Not imitate, but follow. There's a difference. It's not do as I do, not do as I say, not as I do. That's the materialist. The person is smoking and telling the children not to smoke. Well, that doesn't work. And then they say, you do as I say, not as I do. No, that's not an acharya. But they do as they say. It means what they say and what they do are in harmony, not in conflict, you see. So, and over the years, in this modern time, 500 years later, I heard many times, and particularly on the day of the Samadhi of Śrīla Purī Mahārāja, many people who were able came there, many lifetimes friends, members of the Gaudiya Math, his godbrothers also. Babaji Maharaj was there. Nayana Babaji Maharaj, others who knew him, and there were many talks, and in these talks this word Nama-acarya. This came up many times. The Śrīla Purī Mahārāja was also a Nama-acarya. He was an acharya of chanting of the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. He was loved by everyone. He had no enemy. Everybody loved Śrīla Purī Mahārāja. He had no enemy. And he was always showing us by his dealings with others, by his self-practice, he was showing us what is required for a life, successful life in chanting the holy name of Kṛṣṇa, and many people told like that, acharya of the holy name, a nāmācharya of the holy name. Ki Pramod Puri Goswami Mahārāja ki Jai. Hari Hari Hari. Question or comment? Yeah.
I have a question. I'm just afraid it's not quite appropriate. But
Then?
just
Those who always come with the bomb. What is it?
But Audarya, you were speaking about Audarya-lila, and it's seems like such a wonderful thing. I was just thinking of, or just trying to understand a little bit how also in Audarya-lila there's like the kind of elite or intimate pastimes like Srivas-angan, or where there's like a limited amount of more intimate associates of Mahaprabhu. And is this
It was
part?
a small house. Is this what?
Is that included in Audarya-lila? Is that?
Yes, that is included in Audarya-lila also. There are, but you don't understand, that came out of Srivas-angan, that went out into the streets. Rasa-lila didn't come out into the streets, it remained in the groves of Vṛndāvana, behind locked door in the Nikunjas. It did not come out to the street. And what was found in Srivas-angan ultimately came out through the cracks in the doors and the windows and went to the streets. And it went all over the world. Not just the streets of Nadia and Puri and South India, we went all over the world. So so just like we're a Sankirtan movement, but we have our space. We have some privacy. We don't just allow people in at any time and all types of things like that. But we are part of that movement which is forgiving the holy name and spreading Krishna consciousness, but also we maintain our we maintain some privacy, some legitimate privacy, some intimacy, and some exclusion is there. You see. Just like the example of service will be given to everyone. But if it's just all jumbled in a mess, then having some guy right off the street serving the prasadam at the Sunday feast, this is not nice, actually. Those who don't know what is prasadam, who have no love for Krishna, who don't know what is a devotee, who have no love for the devotees, they shouldn't be the ones serving prasadam to the devotees. They may be engaged in a Ratha Yatra, passing out the peanuts to the masses engaged in passing out the peanuts to the masses, but it's not good to call them in where the lifetime devotees are sitting and honoring prasadam and have them engaged in serving. It's not nice, actually. And not only is it not nice, they're not fit for that service. Serving prasadam is not a menial service, as I've pointed out many times in the example of Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj. Serving prasadam is a higher service. You don't look for the newest person and tell them promotion. And when exploitation enters in, then the devotion is crippled and offense is created. In Tirupati and other places, they try to restrict this by having a token system that you go. See, because people will come and buy their 30 rupee coupon. And then with that you get a whole bag of prasadam, right? Now you can take that and you can sell that for more than 30 rupees actually. You can get out there with Balaji's prasadam and then part of Tirupati with the masses. People are leaving on the buses and you can sell that. So to restrict that, how do they do that now? Oh, you go all the way through the darshan and you have this little plastic coupon. It used to be a little, like a button. And when you get to the darshan, you turn that in, you see. Now the darshan used to be minimum 3 hours in the queue. So to get that bag of prasadam, you spend 3 hours in the queue, have a darshan, then they give you a coupon that proves you went to darshan. And that's why they do that. And when you come back out, then they give you the prasadam. It's not just that to stop you from getting prasadam, but you didn't go to darshan. No, it has to do with people selling that. And they want to stop that. You see. And in many temples, there's a lot of false prasadam. People will make things that look exactly like the prasadam of that temple, and they'll sell it, but it's not prasadam. It's just a business, a cheating business. Puri is a good example. Gajja is all over the street, but it's not prasadam. Gajja. Yeah. Anyway, so, I mean, the Brahmins, one time I paid for flags for Jagannath, long time back. And I noticed the guy went into the temple with the flags already. First he went in his shop, came back, there was a little bulge here, went in the temple, came back out later and said, here's the flags. But he made them in his shop. Then he told me he could get them. That's not the one I gave you. That's just years ago.
I was wondering there.
That's a big one we have, right?
It's not the big.
Where'd the big one go? There was one that was like 6-8 feet long.
I think that's in the ashram.
You hung it in the ashram.
The mango tree.
Yeah.
Where?
The mango tree right next to the temple. Go in the gardens.
Huh? We hung it in a tree? I didn't know that. Anyway, yeah, so there are different things that are taken into consideration. So, we don't open the life of the devotee. His practice may not allow some other persons to be present there, you see, unqualified persons. But ultimately, that thing which the devotee is cultivating, he takes that out. There's a time when he takes that out and tries to distribute that to the people. And leaving aside his personal necessity for some time and makes that sacrifice. It's really good to do that, actually. We have a situation where all the sacrifices are a little bit different. You're not going out and beating the drum in the street. You're not going out and selling books. Things may change in the future. You may find yourself in a situation. Times change. Sometimes the sacrifice of one generation is not the same as the next. Tulsi Manjari found a little taste of giving Krishna consciousness to people who had no idea of what it was when she went to that camp or something, right? Last year. Some magazines, what are you doing? Chanting on beads. And in that, you experience a certain, like there's a taste. There's like an immediate reward in doing that. I used to go trotting all over the African continent doing that. Dragging books and smuggling them in and out of countries and just to give them to people. And somebody else was in America and the airport and everywhere. It was hard work, but in that sacrifice there was a great reward. You're giving someone their first opportunity to contact the pure devotees and Krishna. And I remember one funny story, the devotees would always preach by these pictures. The artist hardly ever got out to sell the book, but the artist is what made it possible for us to sell the books. Because we would point to these incredible pictures and people were just like, wow, these were like windows into an unknown world for them, spiritual world. So one devotee was selling Bhagavatam, chapter of Varaha. And he was telling, these are incredible stories of God defeating evil. And he opened it up, and there's a picture of Lord Varaha with a little crown, Varaha, the boar, and he's fighting Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyaksha has white hair and some ornaments and everything. And the man goes, because in his conception, God is old, has white hair, and the man goes, why is God fighting a pig? The devotee said, no, God is the pig. I don't know if that man took that book or what. So, what the devotee should have said is, You gotta read this story and find out. So sometimes the truth is not palatable. God became a board. Right. That's what happened when the missionaries and everybody went to India and they discovered the Das Avatar and everything. They looked at that and it was just like, oh my God. They couldn't understand it. And hardly any Brahmin attempted to give them any theological understanding of what this was about. I remember once in the New Jersey Ṭhākura temple, there was a hallway and many of the original Bhagavatam paintings were blown up there and nicely framed. And there was a picture of Lord Narasingha killing Hiranyakashipu, that classic one. I don't know who painted that. This guy painted who? Jadharani. And just killing Hiranyakashipu. And I was locking the door to my room or something, and there was an Indian gentleman and his daughter, young daughter, going down the hall looking at the pictures. And all of a sudden I hear this girl say in English, "Daddy, Daddy, look! Lord Narasingha is killing Hiranyakashipu." And they're very like, "Look, Dad, it's happening right there, the end of the demons, you know." And I turned around, and the little girl was smiling. It wasn't like, what is this? You know, and the kid gets traumatized, you know. And I thought, wow. And then I remembered when they brought this picture into a courtroom once here in America and said to the judge and the jury, "This is what they worship." And everybody's like, drawing back, you know. I said, yeah, because they identify with Hiranyakashipu.
They pray to this to kill their parents.
Yeah, they were saying like that. But they get horrified when they see that, because in that picture scenario, they're the guy on the lap. But we identify with Prahlad and Lord Narasingha. And devotee children don't get traumatized when they see that. But that's the kind of picture actually you would see. Oh, and it was who was selling it? It was Pragosh or somebody was selling your old house. And they had a picture.
He was renting it when I was selling.
In his kid's room, in his child's room, he had a picture of Lord Narasingha.
That's another one.
That's another one, yeah. They really don't like this one.
That was the best one for selling books.
When the Yamadutes are coming together.
Oh, yes. That was a favorite.
So, all right. So, the realtor came out and said something like, "My God, they have this most ghastly picture in the children's room. This beast is just disemboweling some man. What kind of people are they?" Usually you go in the kids' room, there's Daffy and Donald Duck. All this stuff. They put this. Sometimes the devotees, you know, they need to get a little perspective on the world. You just can't show and tell everything because it doesn't work. Chaitanya-lila is, however, the most acceptable of all the leelas of Kṛṣṇa. People, they're envious of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is dancing with beautiful girls. He has 16,000 wives. This is outrageous. He's immoral. All these things. People find fault with Kṛṣṇa in India since the day he appeared till now. But Chaitanya-lila is very hard to find fault with. Mahaprabhu is the ideal moralist, ideal sannyasi. He's curing leopards. It is just filled with magnanimity, grace, and blessings, and forgiveness. All these things filled in Chaitanya-lila. So it is actually easier if we go to preach to somebody who doesn't know anything. Like there's Mr. Steedham, and I'm sure you're trying to eke in there about Kṛṣṇa. Just come out and tell him about Mahaprabhu. Because even with Kṛṣṇa, there's this like, oh, Kṛṣṇa is there, the Hare Krishna, is there going to be some bad thing? Or it's like there's this tendency not to bring out Kṛṣṇa so much. But you could just bring out Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu has no bad name. Mahaprabhu only has a good name, actually. And Śrīla Purī Mahārāja is the one who said to do this. He said, go preach about Mahaprabhu. Tell them about Mahaprabhu. And so that's what Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura was doing. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura's preaching was about Mahaprabhu. And also Saraswati Ṭhākura's preaching. It was about Mahaprabhu. Kṛṣṇa-lila was included there. But it was about Mahaprabhu. So, of course, And we can tell about Kṛṣṇa. We don't hide Kṛṣṇa, but it's easy. I'm saying it's very easy. You can just start telling about Mahaprabhu and 500 years ago, the golden avatar of love. And this. Although this is a horrific age that we live in, this 21st century, still love holds the highest position. Divine love. People are very confused about what it is and all these things, but love is something that everyone recognizes. Love. This is sweet, this is divine, this is wonderful, this is God. God is love, they say. Some people would say God is love. We say no, love is greater than God. He is also a beggar of that. He's also greedy for that. He also wants that. He himself is attracted by love, Mahabhav. Other question or comment? Go, Hari Bol. Śrīla Purī Mahārāja ki jai. Prasadam ki jai. Go, Brahmanam Bihari ki jai.